Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to have you take the time to join us for this evening's community workshop on the Victoria Boulevard apartments. This project has been in the works for quite some time, and so I'm glad you are all here to learn about the project, obtain input, and see the presentation from the developer, Toll Brothers. And the real purpose of this evening is to obtain input and feedback from all of you. And so there'll be a couple of ways that we will explain how that works. Just in terms of housekeeping for this evening, please note that this meeting is recorded and video recorded. The video itself will be made available on the city's YouTube page, so you can refer to this in the future, share it, etc. Also this evening, the meeting itself was noticed in accordance with the Brown Act as a joint Planning Commission and City Council workshop. And so this evening we have Council Member Jamie Federico here in the audience, and Mayor Pro Tem Mike Frost, as well as all of the Planning Commissioners here this evening, Chair John Gabbard, Vice Chair Ash Ingra, Roy Donor, Commissioner Eric Nelson, and Mary Opal are commissioners here this evening. So really, the purpose of them being here is to be able to attend, and that's why we noticed it so that they can be here. There will be no formal actions taken tonight, and so it's really just for them to be able to participate in the discussions that happen. Okay, so with that, moving forward with our agenda, we have on the agenda the public comments not on the project. So it seems like we don't have anyone that wants to speak not about Victoria Apartments, which I can't imagine they would. So we're just moving on. So the big show tonight is the presentation from Toll Brothers, and we have Michael McCann here. From Toll Brothers Apartment Living. He is going to give us a very detailed presentation about the scope of the work, and then myself from city staff will give an overview of the process involved, as well as our environmental consultant. Kristen is here from Michael Baker International. Kristen Bogue is here as the city's consultant preparing the environmental impact report. And so we'll just briefly touch on the next steps involved in the project. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Michael for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. It's okay to applaud. She's doing a good job. It's a little awkward, so I'm going to be down here, up here, trying to make this work. I want to say thank you to everybody who's here. This is an exciting opportunity to catch you up with where we're at on our planning for the project. We're definitely getting closer and closer to having something we think we can bring to a planning commission, but it's still got a ways to go. And it seemed like the perfect opportunity to solicit feedback from the community, take a read on what we're doing right, hear your comments on what you'd like to see adjusted, and we're very glad for this opportunity to do that. Thank you to the city for hosting this. Again, it's a great opportunity for a developer to put ourselves in this sort of forum. Make the point that some of these slides might be a little hard to see. You guys are obviously welcome to get a little closer if it's difficult. Afterwards, we're going to go back out in the foyer again, the Toll team, and be ready to answer any questions you may have. If you missed something, if you wished you had a slide that you could spend more time on, fill out a comment card. We have comment cards and pens over there. We're going to collect them. And if you want to have me visit, great. If you want to just get on a Zoom call, perfect. A call, whatever it takes, just an email to make you feel like you had a chance to dig into whatever we're showing and make comment. We are going to create that opportunity for you over the next several months. We have the project manager from Toll, John Hyde, is here. Another project manager, Michael Moore from Toll. We have the project architect, Keith Labus from KTGY. The landscape architect, Trent Knoll from SMP, and then the civil engineer from, who's it now, Fusco? Good Lord, is here as well, with the intent of digging into any questions you have. So, without further ado, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to make a point that some people think about apartments and they get a bad image, perhaps from something that was built in the 70s and really didn't enhance a neighborhood at all. We understand how special a place Dana Point is. You've got several locals that are part of our team, and we know some of the high first-class resorts, restaurants, and other events that take place here, and that's what we intend to reflect. This is luxury apartment community. It's meant to, frankly, appeal predominantly to people with high incomes and who will be living here by choice. The community will provide a full range of services and amenities, and it's for people that just kind of want to be liberated from the typical maintenance of a home. We always talk about pride of rentership. These are people that are anxious to have people come visit, see where they live, and really kind of entertain, show them how highly amenitized the community is and just how great the spec level is. It's a park and stay lifestyle to the best extent that we can. We do think people will be able to walk, ride bikes, and get to the amenities of Dana Point from this site. That includes the Lantern District, the harbor, beaches, and then within our project itself, it's got concierge services and trash valet and all sorts of different reasons why this is going to be a very special community. I'm not going to spend a lot of time running you through this, but you can see some of the features within the units, features within the community. These are courtyard spaces, clubhouse spaces, pool spaces that our residents will get to enjoy. But the reason we're here, the reason that you're here, not so much worried about whether our tenants are going to have a great time, but kind of what it means to the community as a whole. This is the site as it exists today. I know it's been a special place over the years, but it's probably gotten to a place where its highest and best use has kind of run its course as far as a school bus maintenance yard. This is where we're trying to take it, and I know there's a lot to take in here, a lot to see. People are going to have questions. Again, we're going to make ourselves available, so please don't feel like if you miss something or don't get to ask, we're not going to take the time to listen to you. A couple important things to note. Along here is a historic street called La Playa. We were requested to open it up, make it an amenity to the community. You'll see more on it in a second, but it's going to be publicly active, accessible space that includes a dog park. So it's meant to be for the community. If it was just about our community, frankly, we would have kind of locked it down and turned it into something specific to our tenants, but it's not for the tenants, it's for the Doheny Village community. You've got along Victoria, this project has evolved a bit. I know some of you have seen a different version of this that you weren't too crazy about. At this point now, it's 3-story units, or 3-story stacks and 4-story stacks. The 5-story stacks don't start until you're basically 80 feet off the street, and it's basically where this site kind of starts to fall into a hole here. In other words, this location is unique. We're literally sitting inside of a hole. As you come along off the freeway off-ramp at this level, you're 50 feet above our ground floor. In other words, you're at basically our rooftop level. As you get further, you're 30 feet above, and you're starting to see the nice architecture on our building, but it's predominantly softened by eucalyptus trees and really not much to see there. At the far end, down by the Sepulveda cul-de-sac, come on, pointer, but anyway, it's about 12 to 15 feet, depending where you're measuring from, still above our grade. So in other words, this project will not obstruct views, not be an eyesore for the community, and rather sit in this hole. But there was a lot of sensitivity about this, kind of the elevations along here. So we took units out, we dropped them off the top here, just flat out took them off to create a shorter element here. We opened up these courtyards to give it a much more open feel. And there's a nearly half-acre park on the corner here at Sepulveda and Victoria, which you'll get a better look at in just a second. This is a view facing south. You can see the 1-acre park there. This is dedicated as a park in perpetuity. It is open to the public. It is amenitized for the public. We're still considering exactly the best way to kind of how to do the improvements, but the current thinking is a fire pit here with seating for people to enjoy. Obviously a lot of grass there for dogs and children to play on. Lots of bench seating of all sorts of different types for people to come, sit down, enjoy, take a rest while they're on their stroll. Kind of a ground view of it, of the half-acre park, of the lower elevations along here. I'm trying to help people envision how the character of the street is going to evolve and become a place that is actually rather enjoyable to not only drive down, but walk and bike as well. Finally, this is looking north along Victoria, and again, kind of showing you the width of the sidewalks, the additional parking that's going to be done. Over here is the fire station, which you can see, this thing's kind of quirky, is about the same height as the building across the street. This is a view of kind of at the ground level as you're coming on this off-ramp, and you can kind of, believe it or not, the building is down here. Sits in a hole, and you can barely see it from this perspective. Same thing here, starting to pop up, but softened by the eucalyptus trees and still kind of off the road quite a bit. The unit mix, for those that are curious, it is 349 units, 10% studios, 52% ones, 33% two bedrooms, 5% threes, and you can see what are admittedly some pretty big rents there. Our rent studies indicate that there's a market for these units. People who want to enjoy the Dana Point lifestyle, but don't want to necessarily buy. The mix is pretty typical. You're trying to incorporate some studios for those that can't quite afford the one bedrooms, but are dying to be in the community. On the other end, you're trying to make sure that families can rent some of the 3 bedrooms, or just friends can do the same. There's more shots of the landscape we'll look at in a second. This is just to give you a little bit of a kind of an overview, or looking down on it. You can see the courtyards that open up to the street. There's your half-acre park. This whole La Playa will be, we'll have a walking, biking path. We'll have bench seating, shading. The dog park sits in here. Again, that's a publicly accessible dog park. That's not just for our community. A little bit better view of the park. It's a work in progress. And actually one of the things I'd be very interested in, or our team would be interested in, is just what you'd like to see there, what you think is the highest and best use. Our landscape architect has proposed this particular structure. We're trying to start to lock it down, so it's not an open book forever, but there's certainly plenty of opportunity to hear from you and make adjustments as needed. Just a little closer view of that La Playa pathway. This part's a little less landscaped because it acts as an emergency vehicle access and a secondary access into our garage. But the intent is to try to create as much green space and seating and areas to enjoy as possible. This is more about kind of our internal spaces, but we did want to make sure we made the point that Sepulveda is important to us as well. It's going to be look really nice. There's a boardwalk along the edge here that people can kind of walk along to get into our units, but it has not been forgotten, and it'll be less seen by the community, but we know there's some important folks over there, important neighbors, and we're going to make sure it's special for them as well. So how did we get here? Back in 2018, the school district feels the This property has kind of run its course as far as being of use in its current state for them. And they decide they want to try to get a developer to come provide some improvements on a ground lease. The property is going to continue to belong to the school district, but on a long-term ground lease. One of the nice things that comes out of it is there were some leaking underground storage tanks, creating some environmental issues. When our project started to move forward, the school district decided it was time to clean them up. And when we build our project, whatever remaining dirty dirt is there will be taken out and treated properly. So we'll kind of be the second half of dealing with the environmental issues there. We get selected in 2018 and execute an option agreement with the school district that allows us to go through the entitlement process. Once the project's entitled, the ground lease would kick in. There's been some concerns expressed that, hey, can the school do this? Back in 1920 and then again in 1930, there was a deed restriction put on this property that said, look, it always has to be school uses. If it suddenly doesn't become school uses, the property reverts back to what was then, I think, a bank. As it turns out, two things kind of dispel that concern. One is, legally, the state of California did away with those sorts of deed restrictions that tie up land and make it effectively undevelopable because somebody back in 1920 decided to put a deed restriction on it. But we wanted to kind of belt and suspenders it, make sure people were completely comfortable with where this was going. So we tracked down the successor in interest, which is a bank that bought a bank, that bought a bank, that bought a bank. That was the original owner here. It was Bank of the West. Chased them around for 2 years, and they have executed a quitclaim deed and release of deed restrictions, which effectively says them as the successor in interest have no more interest in the land, have no more claims to it, and so the deed restriction is gone. It's a non-issue at this point. Moving back or going back to how did we get here, we meet with city staff, leadership, culminated in a presentation to City Council on July 1st, 2020. The city heard what we had to say, had some suggestions on how to improve the plan. We started meeting with the Doheny Village Working Group on several occasions, and I start making the rounds, meeting with several of you to just kind of understand what we're getting ourselves into and how we need to change the project to react to you. La Playa is open because one of the people here, I don't know if he wants to take credit for it or he's worried about taking blame for it, but somebody here requested that we open it up so they can meander back there, have the connectivity, walk, ride bikes, and so we did so. That came out of the public outreach that we did. And I'm not going to say who it was, but this path is probably going to be known as the Richard Law path of travel going forward. So, but I don't want to give away any secrets. February 2nd, 2021, the project evolves to a place where the City Council feels comfortable allowing us to start working through the general plan amendment that's required and do an EIR, Environmental Impact Report. It's not approving the project. They're just saying you're getting close enough to go ahead and spend your money to study this and see if it makes sense. But during that meeting, they were quite adamant, very clear, and I think trying to watch out for the city, trying to watch out for the community, make sure this project goes where it needs to go, and they had directives that fell into 5 categories. These are a very high-level summary of those, and we're going to dig into them just a bit so you can understand where this project has gone. But the total number of units, the building heights, open space, affordable housing, public improvements, and then there was quite a bit of emphasis on this project better create community benefits if we're going to let it happen. So, total number of units, which has been used as kind of a proxy for, gee, we're worried this is too big. And we understand that, but for a project like this, it's actually, we're nowhere near kind of maxing this out, just in case anybody's concerned. But what we did is we were directed to reflect the density that other areas in Doheny Village would have once the rezone took place. So the rezone that's been approved by the city and is about to get approved by Coastal Commission, I think at the beginning of next year, allows for 50 units to the acre in several locations, including, I believe, across the street. So we're reflecting that. We're providing affordable housing, which by state law, state mandate, provides us with a density bonus. And when you kind of do the math and work it out together, it actually allows us, in theory, to do 367 units. City said 365 max. They didn't say we're good with 365, just 365 max. Over time, it's become 349 units. Why? Because we started taking the units off the top of Victoria to lower the building there, reacting to public or community concerns, and we opened up the site, just loosened it up. It's a very loose site. The lot coverage for this project, meaning the percentage of area that the building covers relative to the overall area of the site, is about 56%. 44% of the lot remains without building improvements on top of it. So we checked this box, and I think we checked it off well in a way that really respected the call to keep it below 365. But there's still some thoughts, gee whiz, isn't that too big? Which I think is a bit of again, a proxy statement for, I'm worried about parking, I'm worried about traffic. Parking for this project is going to be at city standards, existing standards. We're not doing any variations. We're not asking for lower parking standards than what the rest of the city effectively is under, which is 1.9 spaces, per dwelling unit. We're going to park it at 1.95 per dwelling unit. By development standards, it's way overparked. There are kind of smart development people, experts in the field that would be appalled at this because it's going to be a lot of empty parking spaces. It just will never come anywhere near filling up. We understand that's a good thing. We understand what your concerns are. But I want to assure you there's going to be more parking for our residents and our guests than we'll know what to do with. And so parking ultimately is just not really going to be an issue here. Traffic. We were concerned about that as well. We've got people coming in to spend a lot of money. They expect to have a good lifestyle. They expect to be able to get in and out of this place feeling like they're not going to war every day. So a traffic impact analysis was initiated. Frankly, I don't mean to sound like a hero. The city insisted on it as well, and rightly so, to make sure that we were doing no harm. The city managed the traffic engineer that did it. Pretty darn sure I'm sure we paid for it, but it was under the city's guidance. And effectively what they came to is really no meaningful impacts to any intersections, but for one. In 2045, they project, whether our project moves forward or not, that there'd be problems with the Stonehill Drive I-5 on-ramp intersection. And that with some changes to the geometry of the intersection and changing around the lanes, how they're striped, you can tell I'm not a traffic engineer, that ultimately it could be resolved. So the only, that's the intersection that is deemed to be at risk for problems in 2045. As such, our project is going to contribute funds to the city. Apparently it's the city of San Juan Capistrano that's going to actually do the work, but there'll be a contribution made to pay our fair share, what's deemed as our contribution to the issue, to rectify the challenges that are seen for that intersection. But effectively, we're not making the traffic any worse than it could otherwise be with this site. I know people find that hard to believe. Apartments have a very even flow of traffic. It's not a bunch of people coming out at 8 a.m. and a bunch of people coming back at 5 p.m. It's the exact opposite. They're just kind of flowing out slowly but surely all day and coming back slowly but surely all day, as opposed to office in particular, a lot of retail, a lot of restaurants. It's all concentrated, and that's when you end up with some of your more bigger problems related to traffic. Building heights was another directive. No more than 50 feet along Victoria, up to 65 feet permitted. Wow, I missed some wording here. I think it's 50 feet from the property line. It can be up to 65 feet. And then there was some provisions for going even higher with some of the rooftop utilities and the amenities in the middle of the project. We didn't get anywhere near that. It's hard to see, and you can see it on a board out there, but what it's saying is that the 3-story level is about 35 feet, the 4-story level is about 47.5 feet, and the 5-story, as you get further away from Victoria, maxes out at about 56 feet. I'm not saying that's short, but it's well below kind of the mandates from the city on where we were supposed to be with our height. We've got a visual. That purple is the 65-foot plane, and what it's showing is that the only thing that pops above the 65 feet is in the middle of the parking garage area. There's an amenity space that goes up a couple feet. It's a little overkill, but that's 65 plus 10, 65 plus, or 65 plus 10 plus 10. So we're well below where we were supposed to be with our height. Concerns about shading. This is a study done. It's a little hard to see, and this is where I'm saying, look, people want to see it, get a little closer. I realize it's a challenge. I'm telling you, the door's open. We'll send these exhibits to you, walk you through them, get you comfortable as many times as you need, as many people as want to hear this. We're glad to have that conversation. But what it's indicating is during the summer season, no shading to speak of whatsoever. During the winter, morning, afternoon, no shading issues. In the evening, at winter solstice, you will get some shading over this portion of the street. That's an apartment building right there. That's the preschool. There's 2 or 3 houses where our shading might hit their building, kind of the edge of their building, the front door maybe. But that's the impact of the shade, and doesn't seem to be problematic. Open space. There was a great deal of concern about having open space on this for this project. There's a kind of a historical zoning of 1.1 acre recreational. It was kind of configured in a way that wasn't going to be particularly useful anyway, but it was a mandate. You're going to replace that. There was some leniency with maybe providing it elsewhere in Doheny Village, but we've effectively put almost all of it on our site. The open space, the publicly accessible, active, usable open space is 1.065 acres. And we'll make up that little 0.03, I think it's 1,500 square feet elsewhere within Doheny Village. Again, that includes the dog park in the middle here and a lot of active uses along La Playa and in this park for the community. In addition to the 1.065, there's about 0.8 acres of street frontage, so the rest of this is all going to be landscaped in a very nice way, and so really the usable space goes beyond just the 1.065. Affordable housing, pretty quick and easy one to talk about. The city said we need 15% affordable housing on site. Getting 15% affordable housing in the configuration that was requested. All cities have state mandates for providing affordable housing, and it's not easy to meet them, and it's no fun, and so this was not real negotiable, and we're glad. We don't have any problems with providing affordable housing as long as it's not such a burden that it starts to really kind of impair our economics in just a way that the project doesn't work anymore. But happy to have the 15% affordable, happy to be a big solution for the city meeting what's referred to as their regional housing needs assessment. In case nobody cares about that, city doesn't meet that, state starts holding back funds, starts suing the city. They find a way to impose their will, I promise you. So we're glad to be a part of that solution. That's the breakdown of the affordable housing. Not sure it's important. Public improvements, and there was an emphasis in the oh my God, what do you call it? What was approved at the city? What do you call the damn thing? Anyway, there was an emphasis on increasing the street parking I know there's a lot of people here concerned about the parking in Doheny Village. Our residents are going to be in the secure parking structure. Their guests are going to be in the secure parking structure. It's covered. There's no reason for us to be on the streets. Instead, we are changing the whole street frontage, so ultimately there's going to be 38% more street parking along just the edges of our property. It's 11 spaces. It's not a lot, but it's accretive. It's a positive. There was also a mandate to adhere to the traffic study recommendations. We're going to do that, and to provide improved bike amenities. So we've got the nice bike path along Victoria and along La Playa. We're providing some public bike like storage or just parking, I guess I'll call it. And then our residents will have access to bike storage as well, and a bike kitchen to repair their bikes. This just shows you the breakdown. Victoria will have 15 more spaces. My God, can I do the math? 15 more spaces than they have now. There's a little bit of a loss on Sepulveda, but net effect is 11 spaces just within our street frontage alone. Not a very easy exhibit to see, but this is the existing kind of parking count and how it's derived. And then we're going to angled parking per the city's request. We think it's a good request. It's great. It's a good way to add parking and just create a better, it actually buffers the walking and biking path that citizens will go on. Sepulveda just kind of shows the existing up there, and then how you're going to be able to parallel park here. Another way we're going to help with parking is we're providing the church access to 50 parking spaces on Sunday mornings. When they get impacted with numbers, both the churches down there, one of them I don't know that has quite the same population, but Capitol Beach Church is using the site presently for overflow parking. We're not taking that away. We're actually adding parking, putting them in a safe, secure environment, and that'll help pull parking or park cars off of the Doheny Village streets on Sundays. Community benefits. It was just a general. Again, it was emphatically stated by the City Council during our hearings, and rightly so. Look, if we're going to approve this project, you guys got to make sure you're doing something for the community. We've talked about a lot of them. Right now, there's no access to the site whatsoever. It's not particularly useful to the community. Instead, we're going to have 1.07 effectively acres of open space for the community. We're providing 53 critically needed affordable housing units, which the city desperately needs. 38% increase in the site adjacent street parking. The street parking or the parking for the church. And then there's 9 power poles that we are undergrounding and or just removing that are associated with our site. It's a small step in the right direction for the city, who maybe not everybody knows, but is at least exploring, studying how to underground the power poles within Dana Point. It's expensive, it's difficult, and no matter how noble an effort the city wants to make, they got to work with the power utility companies as well. So it's going to take some time. I don't know where that's at. It's not my place to speak of it, but we're glad to be making a little bit of a dent in kind of an overall very challenging issue for the city. There's some fiscal benefits, and we think these are incredibly important. The final numbers not worked out. Discussions are ongoing. Pretty clear that our project's going to contribute generally around $6 million to the city to use for capital improvements to Doheny Village and to create better connectivity between Doheny Village and Doheny Beach. This is something the city was doing anyway, so good for them. They're really trying to enhance lifestyle and livability down there, enhance connectivity to the beach, and we're proud to be contributing a rather meaningful sum of money to make that happen. And I'll touch more, or I'll just kind of show you something on that in a minute. And then our project, the ground lease payments, the school district has passed a resolution, which I'll show you in a second, that is committing our 30 years worth of ground lease payments to generate what's called certificates of participation bonds that'll create $40 million once we get our project started, and they've dedicated it to Dana Hills High School for much needed capital improvements. Our project's not responsible for the $24 million of matching funds. I had been under a misunderstanding that we were actually creating that. They're there. They need to be released by local funds. And so what our $40 million or our project arguably is doing is releasing the $24 million that the state will provide as well. So arguably, if we could start our project tomorrow, there'd be $64 million worth of capital available for improvements to Dana Hills High School. And then there's $9.3 million of new revenues that'll go to the city. It is over 25 years. It is 3.6 net when you kind of consider the additional expenses from our community and our residents. But we're accretive to the city's budget. We're not dilutive. Talked about the Doheny Village capital improvement projects. You can't read this. It's not much good. I guess I'm just trying to say it's there. And I think the city can make it available to you. I'll gladly make it available to you. It's I was going to call it a wish list. That's not fair. They're already hammering away at this. They're already trying to plan some of this. Some of it has already happened. Some of it might be ambitious, but that's good. The city wants to be ambitious, and I think our $6 million is going to help them be ambitious. It's a long list, and some of it are more long-term opportunities and short-term opportunities, but like a lot of things we're talking about tonight, you got to take that first step. The ground lease payments. This is a screenshot of the resolution that was passed by Capistrano Unified School District by the Board of Trustees. This was reiterated, I believe, at a city council hearing and at a workshop as well. And I underline this language. We're not supposed to be reading in a presentation like this, and by the way, we're almost at the finish, so thanks for hanging in there with me. But I gotta read, it says, schools located in Dana Point shall have first priority for projects funded by lease proceeds. Proceeds shall first be used and prioritized exclusively to address any capital outlay and facilities needs identified in Section 5 above. The board directs staff to establish a separate fund to receive proceeds collected from the lease of the property. The property in question we're talking about, proceeds from the lease of the property shall only be used for capital facility needs. This is a resolution that the school district has passed in a public forum. They've reiterated it in 2 other public forums. We're anxious to get our project started and try to generate these funds for the good of the school. This is just a screenshot out of their presentation, and it shows the $40 million. I think maybe not today, it's a tough environment today, but 6 months ago I would have told you $40 million was a very conservative number. We'll see where that ends up. And then it shows the state matching funds. I'm not quite sure how this is going to function, but I believe, Belinda, we open it up to questions and comments now, or do we? Okay. So I'm going to, or Belinda's going to hand the mic over. I'll let you introduce.
Thank you, Michael. So I appreciate your detailed presentation. We're going to move on to the segment of the presentation that talks about next steps from the city's perspective. I'm going to grab that. Do you have it? Okay, great. So I'm going to introduce you to Kristen Bogue, our environmental consultant, who will talk about next steps. However, this project does require city approval, and so there are a number of steps needed in order for this project to move forward. In this case, a general plan amendment is required, a zone change, adoption ultimately of the Victoria Boulevard specific plan. We have a local coastal plan amendment, as well as the development agreement, site development permit, coastal development permit, a tentative parcel map for all the underlying lots on site, certification of a project level EIR, and then once that is all approved, then we will issue building and grading permits. So I will turn it over to Kristen.
So Kristen Bogue, I'm with Michael Baker International. City staff have contracted us to assist them with preparation of the environmental impact report. I know some of you made it to the scoping meeting. It was a while ago, so we're taking this opportunity just to remind the public of the CEQA process and where we're at. So you can go back to the other slide. In general, the purpose of CEQA, well, we're trying to disclose information about environmental impacts, identify ways to avoid or mitigate significant impacts, to enhance public participation in the planning process, and foster interagency coordination during the review of this project in particular. So based on the scoping meeting that we had back in August of 2021, it has been a while, we did decide to scope out these topic areas in the environmental impact report. So based on what the project is proposing, we are looking at impacts pertaining to land use, aesthetics, light and glare, tribal and cultural resources, geology and soils, hydrology and water quality, hazards and hazardous materials, transportation, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, energy, noise, population and housing, public services, recreation and utilities, cumulative effects, the project and other projects happening in the city, as well as surrounding cities like San Juan Capistrano and San Clemente as well. And then we look at alternatives. So based on all of that analysis, we look at what impacts are potentially significant impacts, and we look at alternatives to the project that have the intent of meeting most of the project's goals and objectives, as well as reducing the significant impacts on the environment. So this graphic is really intended to give you guys an idea of the CEQA process and all the opportunities the public has to provide input. We actually have finished the first phase of the initial study, notice of preparation, which was August of 2021, at which time we had a 30-day public review period where we solicited public comment on the scope of the EIR. Right now, we're actually in between the next phase, then and now. We've been working hard on drafting the environmental impact report. We wanted to take this opportunity to let the public know we are getting close, and we do anticipate releasing the environmental impact report for public review in hopefully early January. And once that happens, you'll have another opportunity to review the EIR and provide comment. Once we receive all public comment, we will prepare formal written responses to comments and include it as part of what's called the final EIR. And the final EIR will go to hearing for review and certification, hopefully. And at that time, the public will have another chance to come and provide more comment on the final and those responses to comments. Next slide. So as I was saying, we wanted to give you guys the opportunity to understand that we're hoping to release the EIR hopefully early January. There will be a 45-day public review where you can look at the EIR and then provide comments in writing to city staff. And based on our current preliminary schedule, we're looking at going to hearing in spring of 2023, and then California Coastal Commission review summer of 2023. So again, just reiterating, keep an eye out. City staff will be publishing notice of availability of the environmental impact report, hopefully come January. And there'll be a 45-day period where you can provide comments in writing to Melinda Dines. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. So speaking of public comments, the second half of the workshop this evening is obtaining input from you all. And so we have a couple of ways of doing that. Toll Brothers does have written comment cards available if you'd want to provide some input, so feel free to take one of these. We will need them back by the end of this meeting, and so there is a drop box where you can provide your written comments, and we'll take a look at that. The city will receive copies, as well as our environmental consultant, to take a look at any comments you may have. Another option that we'll go ahead and do for our public comment section of the agenda is these yellow forms right here. So if you would like to speak and come up to the microphone right here, You're more than welcome to speak your public comments. I believe we have a few, and we'll go ahead and call up your name. And before we do that, there will also be an opportunity after the public comment section to go out to the stations that Toll Brothers has available. You can go look up close, see and ask Toll staff any specific questions. Feel free to write any of those comments down on your comment card, the yellow, or the white comment card before you leave. And so after we break for the public comment period, we'll go ahead and have you go back and look at those stations that they have available. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with the public comment section. And we'll generally limit you to 3 minutes for speaking, and we'll probably let you know when you have about 10 seconds left, if that works for all of you. So Shana, if you could announce the first 3, and then you can queue up in this hall right there so that we can just move forward through the list of speakers. Thank you.
So the first 3, Larry Robinson, Jake Vanderzayden, and Rhonda Dunlevy.
Well, I guess everybody can hear me. Great. Well, kudos to Michael here. I think that's a great presentation. It's quite an impressive project. I've always been concerned about the scale. I think that many of us here are concerned about that and the consequences of any sort of density that goes in the area. One major concern I have is to the extent that there's going to be interagency cooperation. I know the city tries to do everything they possibly can in many areas, but one of the major issues that I foresee is given the attributes of the area in terms of the level of quality, in terms of the lifestyle, and how important that's going to be in terms of connectivity. Access to the beach, access to ultimately what would be all the amenities that will, I'm sure, be in demand once this project should be completed. Obviously, there's going to be many people that are going to want to access services and various features in the Doheny Village, and connectivity is going to be a really important part of that. And I think one of the issues that's really been a concern in the past is you have different agencies involved. You have Caltrans, you have not only the city, but there's all kinds of other things that are going on in terms of right-of-way. And given the proximity to the beach and to everything that this area is so renowned for, and the potential that it can be, I can see a lot of things in play there. So my big concern is just to what effect the city can encourage that interagency cooperation, and just to the degree that that will actually happen, because somehow it seems to me that it's really hard to connect those dots, and that's a concern that I have as far as connectivity. Thank you.
Evening. I'm Jake Vanderzand, and I'm a local resident about 35 years, and I have 5 children that have gone through this school, and I'm here primarily as a homeowner and secondarily as the president of the Dolphin Foundation. And the Dolphin Foundation exists within the high school specifically to help fund unfunded projects that benefit the kids. And I just want to urge all my fellow citizens to think about this and the benefit that it provides. And I want to thank the city for being really creative, the school district for getting really smart about the use of their property, and especially Toll Brothers for the contribution that you guys can make back to the school. I don't know if all of you are aware, but this is a 50-year-old building, and it needs a lot of work. And for the sake of our kids, if nothing else, I would urge everybody to really do everything they can to support this. So thanks, guys.
Good evening. I'm Rhonda Dunleavy. I'm a local resident. Just some questions that I would like to pose. My main concern with the density of this project would be traffic flow. One, is the traffic study public? Are we allowed to see it, look at it, comment on it? Secondly, if you have 341 units or so, you'd be looking at 800 cars, 900 cars, 1,000 cars, 1,000 people, 1,200 people, depending on if you have a two-bedroom apartment, if there's 4 people living in there, that could potentially happen. And then on the weekends or during the summer, we have huge festivals at Doheny. 20,000 people will show up on a weekend, and just the traffic flow off of PCH coming south or north. How does the city or the developer plan on mitigating that on busy weekends in Dana Point with traffic flow with the state, because it is PCH, right? So the city would not have control over increasing all those lanes. That would come from a state level. So that would be a concern of mine. And then the ability you stated the ability to provide up to 50 parking stalls on a Sunday. So I don't know if that means you're sharing it with other people, and I'll ask this later, but how would this be accomplished and who would manage that? Those are my questions.
I can hit the last one real quick. It's the 50 stalls will be there for the church. I say up to available because I don't know how many are going to actually show up. So if they have 50 cars, they'll have 50 stalls to put those cars in. We'll have them empty. There'll be an open part of the kind of the ground floor and basement parking area. So that's our commitment to the church, and ultimately that's a commitment to the community to make those available. The traffic study, is that public? So we'll figure out a way to make that available to you. The comments on the traffic are noted. I'd be happy to sit down with you and talk about kind of the population that is more likely to be here. I think some of the numbers, I think your concerns can be alleviated by just a little bit better understanding of how this project will function. And I'd be happy to do that in a phone call or in person or whatever works for you.
And I did want to clarify on the traffic impact analysis. That will be attached to the staff report going to the Planning Commission and City Council. So it will be made available to the public for review.
The next 3 speakers, Brent Newmeyer, Katie Anderson, and Mickey and Peggy Munoz.
Hi, my name is Brent Newmeyer. I'm a resident of Capo Beach for the last 15 and a half years, former resident of Costa Mesa, and I know what this kind of development does to an area. I've seen it in Irvine, I've seen it in Newport Beach, and I am absolutely livid right now. It's only because my wife saw the article in the Dana Point Times. We have had no notice, and I have blindly, like a lemming, assumed that the city would do what was best for the people in the city. I don't like driving through Irvine and seeing 5-story apartment complexes street after street after street. If they want that up there, that's their choice. But this is Dana Point and this is Capo Beach. I don't want a little Manhattan on every corner. Toll Brothers has over 10,000 units currently, correct? Well, on their website it says 10 and another 16,000 in development. Toll Brothers is a multi-billion-dollar huge conglomerate, and they are looking at every square inch of land in Orange County to cover with 4- and 5-story apartments. And now they want to put it here in our neighborhood. I don't care what a traffic study says, because I've dealt with traffic engineers. I have a BS in geophysics with a minor in engineering, and I know what engineering is, and I know how it works. And there's theoretical and there's actual. And if you, personally, haven't tried to get on the freeway in the morning between 7 and 9 o'clock at Stonehill Boulevard, then you can't tell me another 350 cars from 350 units is going to have no effect. And when those people are coming home, whether it's at 3:30 or 4:30 or 5:30, you can't tell me the streets around here aren't going to be packed. And you can't tell me when they're all going to the beach on a Saturday or Sunday and it's bumper to bumper 2 blocks back up the freeway, that there's going to be no impact. We don't need that kind of development here. You want single-family residences? You want 2-story condos? I could entertain that. I'd rather see it stay a bus yard. But if that's what you're willing to do, then we can talk. But I've also been a former school teacher, and I know that blood money is not what you think it is. $40 million, that's not going to go where everyone thinks it is. It's not how school districts work. It's not how it rolls. I've seen too many promises that were just ignored later down the line. So before you guys go on with this, I want you to know something. I'm watching you, and I will go door to door in every house in Capitol Beach and put out a flyer and let them know what's going on. And I will show them pictures of what it's going to look like coming up Doheny Park Road, where there's going to be 4 or 5 stories of buildings. And we'll see what the rest of the neighbors think.
Good evening. My name is Katie Anderson, and I have been a resident here in Dana Point for the last 18 years. I am also the PTSA president here at Dana Hills High School and a member of Dolphin Foundation. Tonight here, speaking as a resident, I do believe that this opportunity is a win-win for both our community and our high school. I echo everything that Jake Vanderzanen said. We are here at Dana Hills High School, to speak from that perspective, in desperate need of upgrades to this 50-year-old building. Our kids deserve a lot better. We have been patient, and this money, while I understand that $40 million is just the beginning of being able to make the changes that we need at this school, I believe it is a step in the right direction. We need progress on this project, and I'm here to say that I'm in full support. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mickey Munoz, local Capo Beach resident for, I think over 40 years. We're directly across the street from where this is going to go in. And you've obviously done your homework, and aesthetically it's interesting, etc. But to add another 400 or 500 residents in Capistrano Beach, we've had 2 911 calls in the last year. First one, guys beating our front door down, and it was 45 minutes before the police got there. The next one was a few weeks ago, guys out tearing his clothes off, throwing rocks, and screaming profanity. It was over an hour before the police got there. Dana Point, I love Dana Point. I've lived here, most of my life, served here and worked here. Dana Point, you got to take care of the people that live here first. And with the traffic, with the number of people, and you vet your renters. We'll see. Anyway, and how are you going to mitigate how long is it going to take to build? Bang, bang.
Next is Michelle Ploessel Campbell. Close enough. And Larry Dorn. And then we'll welcome any additional comments as well.
Hi, I'm a local resident. I've lived in the area for over 30 years. My family has been coming and visiting and enjoying Dana Point since my grandparents were dating in the 30s. Change happens. This is a change, though, that will ultimately benefit the youth in our community who come through this school. And that matters, because I would be ashamed if we didn't do everything we could to help our youth, because our youth are who are going to rule this world one day. They're going to be the ones taking care of us when we're old. And it's shameful that our students are in classrooms that are boiling hot in the summer, that do not have equal access to technology that people just up the road have. And this is a start. It's not the full amount of money we need to be able to redo Dana Hills into a modern school, but it's a start. And it's a start that doesn't cost the taxpayers a penny. And that matters, because we pay a lot in taxes. But this is $40 million minimum coming into this school that didn't cost the taxpayers a penny. And every time our school district says, we need help, we need a bond to redo this, the taxpayers say, nope, don't want it. This is a way to put $40 million into our school without costing the taxpayers a penny. So I grew up coming here. I'm 50. I've been in Laguna Beach, Dana Point, resident of this area my entire life. And I am ashamed that we are not doing more to invest in our children, because they are the future that we have. And this is a way of, yes, accepting change. But we have to accept change to make the future better. Thank you. Oh, and I support the project.
My name's Larry Dorn. I want to address a couple things to the city as well as to Toll Brothers. I've been a property owner of multiple properties on Victoria Boulevard for a number of years, and I have never received a mailer, a phone call. The Orange County taxpayer seems to be able to find me, as do all the utilities. So I would highly appreciate finding out something about this. I did learn about this via one of my tenants, and I did learn about the Capitol Beach Improvement District meeting, which took place last year, which I did attend. I might have been sleeping, but I don't recall anything that was discussed about an apartment project being proposed for the site where it's located right now. We talked about densities, we talked about heights, we talked about traffic, we talked about improvements of the local area. Nothing was said about this, which I find to be somewhat unusual. So it's been obviously going on for a number of years, and this is where we are. So I am in the multifamily business. I own a number of properties in the area as well as different locations, so I understand how these things go. So let's talk about parking here. Let's be realistic. You're looking at a mix between studios and 3-bedroom units, and you're budgeting this out at 1.95 units per, or 1.95 cars per unit. I can tell you right now, my properties across the street, I have a gentleman in a 1-bedroom unit who has 3 cars and a trailer and 2 motorcycles. I have 2 2-bedroom units, which each have 3 cars. And I have another 2-bedroom unit, which it's a single man. He has 2 cars. So he kind of fits that parameter. So let's talk about how you treat the parking on the property. Is it going to be assigned parking spaces within the property? Is it going to be permit parking spaces within the property? And then what happens when a 3-bedroom unit is rented out by 6 guys that want to live by Dana Point and they want to surf, and they each have a car? Where do they go? They're going to go on to Victoria. Do you think there's parking in Victoria right now, or Sepulveda? There's not. There is no parking. So where are they going to go? And I know you think you're over parking this, but I think that's absolutely crazy. You've got experience in this business. Toll Brothers does a lot of multifamily work. The city obviously has a consultant which has prepared their report. I would find that highly suspect unless the consultant was living in a location where maybe it was a dream area where people would be walking to work, so they don't really need a car. This is Dana Point. This is right next to the freeways. People want to get up and go. There's a lot of cars. So let's talk about the traffic area of Victoria and Sepulveda. Right now it's a four-way stop. In the morning, as some people have alluded to, if you were trying to get out and go to work in the morning or even on the weekends, going through that four-way stop can back up 10, 15 cars. Let's add maybe, be realistic, let's add 600 or 700 cars or people trying to get to work in the morning, coming out of the apartments. How's that going to work? How are the emergency services going to work? I literally have the properties right next to the fire department, and I'm hearing them go out probably every 15 minutes. So what's going to happen now when we've got traffic backed up from Sepulveda going way past the fire department? How are they getting out? So those are my questions. And just to address one other thing too, just because I keep hearing this come up, there is money that's going to be coming out of this development that's going to go to the school systems. But what happens is the same thing with the lottery. So this is fantasy money. This money goes out to the school system. Next year's school budget goes, oh, we're going to get $10 million from Toll Brothers or $20 million from Toll Brothers. They cut the budget. So don't make it to think that this is going to be excess funds which will be going to the schools. It doesn't work that way. So if we were to vote on this, if we were just to vote on this based upon the benefits to the city, we can. If we were to vote on this based upon the benefits to the city, I think we need to look at it realistically actually how that works out. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Sarah LaMonaco.
Hello, everyone. Someone's taking notes of all of these, right? Awesome. Good. 40-year resident, Dana Point, yada, yada, 3 property owners. We're all good with that. First of all, what's a trash valet? We'll figure that one out later. I saw no solar panels on any of the drawings. Isn't that required by the state nowadays? The eucalyptus trees that are softening the view as we come off the freeway on-ramp are owned by the city. The city has a habit of cutting down eucalyptus trees for falling branches and stuff. Isn't that correct? They did Laguna Woods. So that might not soften any of your view, of our view, when we come into town. Let's see. I was kind of curious how that worked with your deed agreement with a public school property. And that made me kind of nervous as a citizen. Public schools buy the land in 1920, 1930 to be used by the public. I don't know what type of deal legally that you guys worked with the city, with the school district to acquire that as a developer. That makes me very nervous. R.H. Dana Elementary School, up on the hill, beautiful acreage. Developers have been eyeing that for a long time, and that makes me nervous. So I don't know how somebody more active can figure that one out, but I didn't like to hear that. Let's see. It's good to see Mickey Munoz here. I knew he would be here. And let's see. I guess that's it. There you go. Thank you.
And do we have any additional speakers? All right, thank you. You're also welcome to fill out that comment card if you'd like to provide a written comment.
All right, this concludes the presentation of this evening. Like I said, I believe toll staff will be out at the easels to answer any questions you might have. Feel free to stay around. I think we do have a hard stop. We'll have to be out of here by 8, so but feel free to stick around and talk to Toll. Thanks again for being here tonight. I appreciate you taking the time. Take care.